Hi, and welcome back to another week of the Academy of Shem and Aver. I'm Rabbi David Katz, and this is our 24th installment. This week, I want to go over, I would call it a practical application of the Torah of Shem and Aver that we learned in the association with Jethro. I know we spent a lot of time on Jethro, so to not make a lot of review, let's think back to the different teachings and associations that we had with Jethro. So Jethro is the Sinai Noahide. Remember, we have Shem with Abraham pre-Sinai. And then we have Moses, the first Sinai Jew. And then we have Jethro with Moses, his father, Moses with his father-in-law Jethro at Sinai. And Jethro becomes the first Noahide of Sinai. The question we entertained ourselves with the last, 4 or 5 weeks was, what did Jethro do to identify himself as a Noahide? The idea is that he didn't just say to himself, I think that I believe in the Noahide way or tradition or whatever words for lack of better terminology you want to use. He didn't just say to himself, well, I'm not Jewish, so I might as well go by the 7 laws. That's not what he did. To the effect that Jethro is called in the rabbinic literature a Ger Tzedek, a righteous convert. And we explained that a Noahide who lives in the land of Israel is called a Ger Toshav, a resident stranger. Strange in that, around the Jewish people, he's not Jewish. So anytime you have living quarters or close proximity to those around you that are not like you, for whatever it is, that would be considered strange. I know that if I was living in the middle of Taiwan, coming from Dayton, Ohio, I would feel a little strange. Not to say that I would feel uncomfortable. It would just be very obvious that you are not from Taiwan. So now that we have Jethro, he's not saying to himself that he is just, he's just not Jewish. That's not the point. The Torah commentaries then go on that by the character in the book of Samuel, Aravna, the Noahide who sold the land to King David, which was referred to me. Thank you. You know who you are that referred it to me. Thank you for pointing that out. Aravna in the Torah is called a Ger Tzedek. He's not even called a Ger Toshav, a resident stranger. He's called a Ger Tzedek. The terminology we usually use for conversion to Judaism in today's world was used in association with a Ravna that a Noahide is called a Ger, which very loosely translates into the word convert. Thus, the word tzedek is righteous, the righteous convert. In today's usage, we don't think of a Noahide as being called a ger, let alone a ger tzedek. We find out that in the Torah commentaries, when you look deep inside, a Noahide has a precedent to be called a ger tzedek. Thus, when we get into the Torah of Jethro can be termed by the usage of the words of the rabbinic literature when he converted that he was converted to Noahide as a proper entity. A conversion to Judaism is not an accident. You don't just wake up one day and say, I'm Jewish. There's a process. There's a revelation. It's a matter of soul. It's a matter of reality. And what we're saying is the Noahide has the exact same principles of reality. The Noahide is a Noahide. It's not a choice to where you wake up and you say, I think I'm a Noahide today, and tomorrow you're something different. Just like in a conversion to Judaism, you can't go back. Once you convert, you are a Jew. You might not be a religious Jew. You might wish you weren't Jewish, but it's official. You have realized at some point the truth, that's what you are. The Noahide is no different. When the Noahide realizes he is a Noahide, he might fight it, go against it, whatever he does internally, embracing or the opposite of embracing, it's a revelation of reality. To the point that does the Noahide then have to convert to Judaism? And the answer is very simply no. As the Noahide he is a proper reality. So Jethro, in the usage of the rabbinic literature, when they describe his conversion, it's most appropriately understood in terms of a conversion to Noahide, meaning he was a priest or minister to the nations of non-Hashemness. And Hashem showed him so much that when Jethro came back to the camp of Israel, he said, I've seen all that Hashem has done. Jethro had no choice but to be a Noahide. Hashem gave him no choice. That it wasn't a choice at all. You can't say it's a choice when Hashem shows you the absolute truth. You can't say, well, I agree with you, Hashem. It's not a matter of agreement. He was converted. And he was not converted to Judaism. He was converted that he was ripped away from the falsehood of the world, and he was brought to the truth by his thinking mechanism. He was a master of thought. Could you think of the Sanhedrin establishment that Jethro put upon Moses? Is that not a very distinct and clear expression of the thought process of Jethro? It's very clear that he was a master of thought, to the point that he thought of things that Moses himself never thought of, to the point of the establishment of the Sanhedrin, the very basis of thought for the future of the Jewish people and the nature and the existence of Torah. So Jethro is this now Ger Tzedek, just like a Ravna after him. Conversion of righteousness. We want to use the word convert, which has a very big stigma put upon it. It must mean Judaism. When we get into the text, we find out that convert does not mean Judaism. In fact, should we use the word convert at all? Maybe we should stick to the original Hebrew, ger. And this is the point I want to address this week. We've been discussing Jethro, his conversion, to use the word conversion. Changed his name, brought a sacrifice, went into the mikvah, and got circumcision. Now think about how you feel when you hear that Jethro was a convert. We'll even spice it up and we'll call him a righteous convert. But simultaneously think about how do you feel in your thought process if you call him a ger. And go one step further in terms of Jethro, how do you feel by calling him a Ger Tzedek? And how do you feel about Aravna, the righteous Noahide, who was in possession of the Holy of Holies of all future temples on the Temple Mount of Jerusalem? How do you feel to call him a resident alien versus a Ger Toshav, or even further, a Ger Tzedek as well? Think about how does it resonate to use the Hebrew versus the English. Is there a right or wrong answer? Absolutely not. It's a nature of familiarity. It's a nature of how familiar do you want to be. That is the choice of the Noahide. Not am I a Noahide, but what is the familiarity I wish to incorporate in my being as a Noahide? And I'm stressing the word being. We go back to the Torah of Shem and Aver. Shem, Aver, the Gematria 612, which is the value of covenant, bris, or for those of you that are more comfortable with Sephardi pronunciation, brit, covenant. We've been talking a lot about the Torah of Shem, 23 weeks. We've talked about Shem, relationship to Shem. And now let's get into the Torah of Aver, the Academy of Aver. We've been in the Academy of Shem. We've been in the Academy of Jethro, Aravna. Let's now go into Aver's Academy, so to speak. And Aver comes from to cross over. Abraham, when he converted to Judaism, he crossed over the river. This is why in the Torah he's called Avraham Ivri, Abraham the Hebrew. A rough translation of Ivri, Aver, is Hebrew. But where Hebrew really comes from, and Shem, who the Torah says the father of... Let me quote you the verse. I don't want to just say it poorly out of context. And to Shem he bore also him, the father of all the sons of Aver. You should know the Gematria there is the Gematria 397. The Gematria Ger Tzedek, the righteous convert. Also the Gematria Ish Elokim, a man of God. And the word and to Shem, the letter spells the word shalom, which I'm sure we're all familiar with, the word for peace or wholesomeness. As Abraham went to the Temple Mount and called the Temple Mount Yirah, which would be the beginning part of the word Jeru, of Jerusalem. In Hebrew, there's no J. Hashem called it Shalom. The two came together and they called it Yerushalayim. And to Shem, also to him were born the ancestor. He was the ancestor of all those of Aver. So thus, Hebrew, as it was brought into the New World from Shem, apparently it was cultivated by Aver. Thus, Abraham's seed inherited the Hebrew language as the rights of the priesthood were given over from Shem to Abraham in the lineage following through Aver. The question that we want to address if we're going to learn in the Academy of Shem and Aver, and we're essentially familiar with Shem in his Torah at this point, to what degree should a Noahide really engage in being a student of the Academy of Aver, a student of the Academy of Hebrew? At what personal point does he judge or view his covenant with God? Ultimately, does he feel comfortable with being called a convert, stranger, alien? That's the English language. I don't know what you would call it in Russian, French, or Greek. But in English, the word ger translates to these words. Or does he feel more comfortable to use the word ger, and more appropriately ger tzedek, which in the Hebrew really has no translation? It becomes a connotation with the text that it's involved with. And this is really the category of degree or midah of the Torah of Aver. To find your familiarity point and your comfort zone. To what point does one want a connection to Hebrew? At what point does one want to delve into the Torah? The Torah says a Noahide that learns the Torah is likened to the high priest. The original would say a Noahide that learns Torah is like a Kohen Gadol, because both are called Adam. Again, the English would be, a Noahide that learns Torah is likened to the high priest, for he is called man. They both essentially mean the same thing. The point of question is, to what point do you want your familiarity with the authenticity of the truth to come in? Is there a better or worse? Absolutely not. Both are absolutely accurate, and they convey the message. The question simply arises, to what degree does one want or wish or feel the need to express the soul within? Some people need to express themselves a lot. They become musicians, artists, painters. Some people don't feel the need that much at all. It's a preference of the soul. Some people are not proper painters, but yet they feel the need to express through paint. So now that we understand that Jethro was the Sinai Noahide, Aravna was this Ger Tzedek, convert of righteousness. The Torah of Aver is the fine-tuning of Shem's Torah. To what frequency does one wish to receive the Torah? And that's what we're going to go into, probably for a while, I'm hoping, is to educate and make familiar and accessible the frequencies of the Torah of Aver. And this is my opinion, one of the most practical vehicles to assess one's relationship to Aver, Hebrew, the degree setting tone of which one finds the truth as authentic, would go back from Aver to Shem. And Shem literally means name. In Torah terminology, there's a word called hekesh, which means basically a union of the smallest distance possible between 2 points. If Shem means name, and Shem is Shem, son of Noah. Then by means of Hekesh, by combining two truths, A equals B, B equals A, therefore A equals B. That's like a Hekesh. Hekesh means to combine. Shem is the Noahide. Shem means name. Noahides have names. How one feels in relationship to that statement would be an example of the tone or frequency of the Torah of Aver. To have the concept of Hebrew within you, which everybody does. The Torah is taught in the womb. Every soul walking the earth has Hebrew within him. The world was created with Hebrew. That only applies if you believe in the mystical tradition. Which brings us to our point of this week's class. Is the mystical tradition real? Does mysticism exist? Does a Noahide have a portion of mysticism? Should a Noahide delve in mysticism? Should a Noahide have a name? Does a Noahide have a name? Yeah, the overall goal we're trying to address is the nature of truth. What is my relationship to truth? How do I feel about the truth? Obviously, as a practicing Noahide, it goes without saying that you believe in truth, you have a portion of the truth, and such forth. We were talking about the Torah of Aver. To what degree do I wish to pursue and reveal the absolute truth, the authentic truth? Are you obligated to reveal any more or any less? Absolutely not. It's the total preference of the expression of the soul. But if I really want to master my expression of painting as an art of self-expression, I really should learn how to paint properly. But what if I just want to doodle on the margins of my notes? Am I any less of a person? Absolutely not. And if you follow the internet, you'll find out you can probably be more successful as a accomplished doodler, applications and whatnot, than being an accomplished painter. Just look at the articles on Yahoo News. People that just throw things together end up finding more creative flair on the internet than an accomplished painter, as an example. So it's an expression of the soul preference. Where do I feel comfortable in my effort to find authentic truth? There's no end to it. And sometimes less is more. If somebody that might get lost in authentic truth may eventually lose the truth. So there's also an act of self-preservation, balance. I happen to love chocolate, but it's not healthy to eat chocolate all day. But when I eat one candy bar for the first time in a month, I say, man, I love chocolate. Why don't I eat chocolate more? And then you realize it's not me. Yeah, chocolate's great. It would be superb to eat chocolate 24/7. But it's just not me. Some people eat chocolate. Literally, I know people eat chocolate every day. And I personally believe that I love chocolate more than them. I love chocolate. But it's not my expression of absolute authentic truth to eat chocolate every day. What would it be like if I did? I don't know. And I'll never know because I'm not doing it. So we're talking about the Academy of Shem and Aver, particularly Aver. How does one pursue the authenticity of truth within the realm of Hebrew? And the concept of a name is the association with Hebrew. A name is Hebrew. Does one have to know their name in Hebrew? No. Again, they all are the same cut of the same cloth. One who wishes to have a certain frequency of connection to the Hebrew, the name perhaps is appropriate. But then again, one must ascertain, is it true? Is there really truth in it? So these concepts go round and round and round. If one is not bothered by the name at all, that's one thing. If you're bothered to know if it's true, it's another. If it sounds so obvious that it's true, that's another. Frequencies of the expression of truth. How much Hebrew to incorporate? How authentic? And again, one basic question is, do you feel comfortable with the terminology stranger, alien, and convert? To me, it bothers me. To you, maybe it does not. When using the word Hebrew for ger. Or do you want to just be locked into the gimel and the resh of the word ger, as the Hebrew letters perform the pronunciation? Ger tzedek, the righteous ger. Maybe that's your frequency. A Ravna who owned the Temple Mount. So I think now we've set the theme, the tone, for today's class. The basis is, I would say, threefold. Hebrew, authenticity, with the culmination of practical application. We're going to tie it all together by looking at two proper streams of thought, both in the English simultaneously with the Hebrew. So to use a focal point, here's the frame of thought. How do you know that King David was kosher? That he was not born out of as a bastard or whatever from immoral marriage, whatever what was said about King David. How do you know it's not true that King David was a nobody, that he was actually somebody? And the answer is Samuel the prophet wrote the book of Ruth on the lineage of King David, that if anybody were to suggest that King David was not of purity, forever Samuel has written the book of Ruth that ends with the synopsis, David is fine. Melech Mashiach, the King Messiah. How would you recognize the Messiah? The Rambam has written a letter how to ascertain absolute truth, to the effect that if you know the truth, then you should be able to distinguish even the King Messiah. And now we're going to say is we're going to use this same letter of the Rambam, and we're going to use it in the act of, by using the Rambam's letter, how do I measure my feelings or association to get to authentic truth, to the point that I can recognize not only the nature of reality, but spiritual reality? How can one get in touch with his soul? To the point that he feels he's a Noahide, but does he really touch the soul within? And if Hebrew is the method of doing such, is Hebrew really latent with a mystical property? Is there a mysticism in the Hebrew? Is there a more authentic truth in the Hebrew? Now, if these questions don't resonate, then they don't resonate. But for some, perhaps they resonate. To the point we would like to arrive to, are names real? Think about the name of Shem. Shem literally means name. Imagine you're going to name your child, and you name the kid name. It's like, my name is. So you call the guy is. Or imagine you don't have a name and they just call you. Hey, you. Now, for Shem, it's not an insult. It's the most sublime nature of the name. He is the bearer of a name. The most simplest expression. Most objective expression. There's no implied connotation that Noah put upon Shem. But all of us here were given a name when we were born. There's nobody in the world that can exist without a name. There's never been a person who was not addressed by a name. Thus, there's no way of knowing what it's like to be without a name. If you didn't have a name, you'd be pretty objective. The closest we have to that is Shem, whose name means name. As far as I'm aware of, at least in English, name is not a name. But in Hebrew, the name can become a name, to the point that God's name, Hashem, is the name. That's the flexibility and beauty of Hebrew. It allows you to express the unexpressible. It allows there to be vessels of light to that which is not containable. It's a miracle. Just as the Torah is a miracle, that God's infinite wisdom should be confined to a book, which is also none other than a book of names of God. So we're going to use the Rambam's letter in the English, and then we're going to get into the Hebrew of it. Is there absolute, authentic truth to a name? Does a Noahide have a name? And it should become a personal question. Do I have a name? Do I have a relationship to Hebrew? Do I need a relationship to Hebrew? Am I okay the way I am? Everyone's okay. When I say the word, am I okay the way I am, meaning, do I feel the need to grow? Do I feel the need to go to get more? If the answer is no, that's a great answer. It means you're comfortable in your own skin. You've found a level of authentic truth that you're working on, that you're thinking about. The word in Hebrew is meshuchlal, fully functioning. Somebody else might not view it the same way. They might say, I'm fully functioning, but I want more. Who's right in this situation? The answer is both are right. Both might be permanent conditions, both might be temporary. Now I feel fine, maybe later I won't. Maybe later I'll want to have more. Maybe now I feel like I want more, but maybe if I find what I'm looking for, then I'll be meshuchlal for the rest of my life. The Torah of Aver is about degrees, focus, and frequency. If you find the frequency you like, is there a need to change or rock the boat? No. A musician that plays guitar, he has his style. Should he find a different style every day just to say, I need a new style? No. If you're comfortable with your style, you're comfortable with your style. But it should be known that there are many frequencies. And if somebody does not feel this word meshuchlal, functioning, fully functioning, what I suggest is it could be, is there a degree of Hebrew that could be incorporated into the being of the Noahide. And being that Aver is part of Shem, maybe you're more connected to Shem than Aver. Maybe for you it's just the Torah. Is that an acceptable answer? Yes. But maybe you connect to the other academies of Shem and Aver that focus on Aver. Frequencies into the Hebrew, into the authenticity. I think we're starting to see the theme here. Do you feel comfortable with the word convert and alien and stranger? Or do you really want to get to the point of familiarity with the word ger? Take basketball. I happen to love basketball. I'm comfortable knowing that I can't shoot the ball for anything. But in an ideal world, I really would love to have a jump shot and perfect my foul shot. I'm not talking about going to the NBA. I would just really like to have a nice shot. So if the opportunity came upon me that I could really learn how to have a proper jump shot or foul shot, I would do it. Now, does that mean I'm going to study the art of defense of NBA philosophy? No. I respect it. It's nice. I enjoy it. It's entertaining. But it's not me. And do I want to just forget about basketball forever? No. But could I incorporate one thing that would have made me appreciate it that much more from a self-being point of view? Absolutely. But yet there are other sports that I don't wish to perfect my performance in them at all. I happen to like watching baseball. I have no interest in perfecting my baseball skills. But I really like baseball. Such with every wisdom of the world. Some things you feel the need to gain frequency, harmony with, to become harmonious with. Some things you don't. It doesn't mean there's a lack of appreciation at all. Again, this is the Torah of Aver. Finding one's frequency of how he wishes to tune into authentic truth, which basically Aver is the language of Hebrew. The Torah was written in Hebrew. Names are Hebrew in root. If there's any sensitivity, maybe the question is not, do I want or feel the need of a name, but I want to know, are names true? Maybe I want to know, is Hebrew true? Do I need to, is the Hebrew of the Torah really necessary? Maybe you just want those questions answered. Maybe it's not a matter of, I want to start going into the Hebrew, but just knowing, is it true? Is there a mysticism to Hebrew? Do Hebrew letters have a gematria, numerical value? This is what we find with the Torah of Aver. Is taking the uniform Torah of Shem and decomposing it, breaking it down, or at least beginning the digestion to relate to the authentic truth of the Torah of Shem. The Torah of Shem is whole and complete. He received it from Noah, his father. Is there anything missing from Noah and Shem's Torah? And the answer is no. It's uniform, it's whole, it's complete, it was given over, it's not lacking, it is, in one sense, a rectification to the sin of Adam in the Garden of Eden. Adam received the commandments kind of in stride. And Adam's approach was, I must be missing something. Don't eat from the tree of knowledge of good and evil. The day you eat from it, you shall surely die. The Torah, the Talmud, the Tractate of Blessings, starts off with, from what time do we say Shema? We all know Shema, Shema Yisrael, Shema Elokeinu, Shema Echad. From what time of the day do we say Shema? The commentators ask, hold on. How do I even know there's such a thing as Shema? Am I missing something? The answer is no, you're not missing anything. The Torah of Shem and Aver assumes also you're not missing anything. And the Noahide has within him an acute association internally in relationship with the Torah of Shem. It's all there, able to draw up all parts of Torah. But then again, we come into them, we transfer from Shem and his completeness. Remember, Shem is just the name. For Shem, even the word Torah might be the whole Torah. It's that calm water, where all is kind of there. Just don't rock the boat. Just settle down into your being and feel the greatness of Torah. That's what's within what's within, not people of the world in general. To limit to make it sound base in general, but the Noahide, the authentic Noahide, should be able to settle on knowing the entire Torah of Shem and Noah is in him. And I'm guessing that's what really resonates with the awareness with Jethro when he realized, I am a Noahide. Is that when he was converted to God's ways, he realized the Torah is in me. Should we be surprised that the giving of the Torah on Mount Sinai is in the Torah portion of Jethro? The Torah is in him. And then Jethro then switches gears and he starts to think, let's start to fine-tune and find the frequency of this Torah within me. What does he do? He changes his name. He has 8 names: circumcision, an offering, and a mikvah. And Jethro lays down the basic properties of how to really strengthen that Torah in him. And there's many associations we can derive from Jethro in his accomplishment. What he did was he took the powers of the 7 laws of Noah and he strengthened them. These are called the kochos of tohu, the powers of chaos. And chaos is not a bad term here. It's like quantum chaos in physics. It's raw spiritual power of the Torah of Shem. And by doing those 4 actions, he basically garments them with, let's call it, a Judeo-Torah Hebrew grip. And allows him to really channel out the Torah of Shem to the point that he's able to fashion the Sanhedrin from that. Did he convert to Judaism? From this point of view, no. Yet you see the power of Jethro's Torah and how authentic it actually is, to the point that he authenticated Torah to Moses, of all people. Then you say, if, as a Jew, he probably couldn't have done that. So again, Jethro became in touch with the Aver aspect of Shem. Which is interesting, because Aver also, as it means to cross over, Jethro represents the bridge for all to cross over. So now that we have a basis for the Torah of Aver, now let's apply it. The first step is to feel comfortable in either Hebrew or English. I'm using English because I assume we all speak English here. This is an English room. But Noahides all over the world should understand how comfortable do they feel in their mother tongue, and to what degree, if any, would they wish to engage into Hebrew. And again, why do we focus on Hebrew? Aver means Hebrew. The Torah was written in Hebrew. The Noahide takes on the Torah as it was commanded to Moses. To be on the level of he who was commanded and does is greater than he who does from his own wisdom. So I'm assuming we're all in agreement that Hebrew is the nature of Torah, on at least an acceptance level. And then we're going to go into Aver to find our frequency. To what level does it go to? And again, it's not to say that you drop everything and you move to Israel to go to Tel Aviv and learn Hebrew all day. Because there has to be a balance. And I'll tell you this, as a person who's been in Israel a long time, I'll tell you who has the least command on Torah than anybody I know. And that's native Israelis. Because they're so immersed into Hebrew that they've lost focus of the goal. They've lost sight of the beauty of Hebrew. It would be like if you wanted to appreciate Shakespeare and then all day long you said, "Where art thou? Where art thou?" Eventually you would lose focus to the beauty of Shakespeare. So to totally indulge, maybe it's right for you, but for somebody else, maybe it's not. For me, it's not. So again, we find all different areas. The frequency and tone is absolutely essential. Not just on a philosophical end, but practical. Okay, that's the introduction to what we're going to do for Aver. I think it's very clear what the introduction speaks about. Going from the Torah and the Academy of Shem, we're going to migrate over to Aver. We're going to unite the two to elaborate what is the degree of the bris, or the covenant. And bris, or covenant, is another term for Torah. It was brought down in King David and Tehillim. I want to read this to you. This is the Talmud about names. And the Torah says, Ruth. This is the Talmud Brachas, chapter 1, page 7b. Ruth. Why was she called Ruth? Rabbi Yochanan says that she merited that would come from her David, that would soak HaKadosh Baruch Hu, God, with songs and praise. Now, the first thing you have to ask yourself is, how comfortable do you feel with what I just said? Why was Ruth called Ruth? Because she merited to have King David come from her, because she would soak Hashem with praises and song. Is that right, what I just said? And the answer is yes. That's the English translation. Well, how comfortable do you feel? It's your preference. Some of you are going to walk away and say, that was nice. Some might say it was not nice. But then one person might say, well, I don't understand. How do you get from Ruth to soaking Hashem with praises and song as a basis for the name Ruth? So the word for soaking, shir saryohu, has within it the root in Hebrew. The basic of the word Ruth is to soak. Thus she was named Ruth because she would Ruth Hashem from her, i.e. David, with song and praise. The Gemara, the Talmud, then continues. And where do we know that a name causes? Rabbi Eliezer says, we know it from Tehillim, King David. Go and look at the actions of Hashem, that he placed desolation in the land. Don't read desolation, read names. The word in King for desolation and Tehillim can double as names. So go look at what Hashem does. Go look from the workings of Hashem, that there he placed names in the land. So the Talmud sees this. The Hashem, don't read that he does that. That Hashem places desolation in the land. Remind you that the word for placed, sham, can also double as Shem. That Shem is placed in the land. The idea here is that names actually have a spiritual property. To explain this concept, we're going to go into the Torah commentary, which is termed the Marsha. He's a commentator to the Talmud. Where do I know that names cause? The Talmud asks. From here, we say that the name of Ruth caused to come out of her King David, and it was infused in Ruth's name. David would come out of her, that David would soak, or Ruth, Hashem, with song and praise. And I established it for this way, he says. From that it's written, go and look from the actions of Hashem. That there's no word is yachis. There's no report of the evil workings that God makes desolation in the land. I mean, there's no, you can't say that Hashem is evil, and therefore Hashem creates evil in the land. We know that God is only good. Man has free will, and man does evil. Therefore, we say, take the word desolation from the language names, that the workings of God are drawn after the name of man, that it causes. I can understand three different hints to the word that it causes. Shehu garim, that it causes. Again, we have to understand the degree of comfort we want to get into the authenticity of the truth in Hebrew. If I just told you that Hashem is the workings of God are drawn after the name of man that it causes, that could be sufficient. My personal preference is to understand what does it mean that it causes. So we can say the name causes, the person who is embroidered with a name, that's what identifies his cause, or that a man gives name to others, therefore he causes a name upon others. Thus what you find here is that a man has a name, Hashem draws after with his name, and the free will of man determines if there will be blessing or desolation. And the responsibility comes upon the person who is embroidered with a name. And it's impossible that a man cannot have a name. So man causes, the creation of man causes there should be a name. The name of man is what Hashem sees as causing, which draws Hashem after that name. Now there's a relationship. Hashem relates to you according to your name, and you relate to Hashem with your free will. So is there fate? No. Is there free will? Yes. Was there something superimposed upon you? Yes, the name. That's where, this is the original source in the Torah of where do we find that a name has a spiritual property. That's where we're going to read you now the first paragraph of the Rambam in the letter he wrote about identifying Melech Mashiach as a vehicle or application of truth. And I want to use the same letter to identify, can we ascertain from authentic truth the Torah we just read in the Tractate of Blessings, or Brachas? How does one feel about the name? Is the name really true based on reason and not just from belief? It's easy to believe, but can one internalize and relate to the truth? So I'm going to leave you with this. Know, my masters, that it is not proper for a man to accept as trustworthy anything other than one of these three things. The first is a thing for which there is a clear proof deriving from man's reasoning, such as arithmetic, geometry, and astronomy. The second is a thing that a man perceives through one of the five senses, such as when he knows with certainty that this is red and this is black, and the like through the sight of his eye, or as when he tastes that this is bitter and this is sweet, or as when he feels that this is hot and this is cold, or as when he hears that this sound is clear and this sound is indistinct, or as when he smells that this is pleasing or this is displeasing, and the like. The third is a thing that a man receives from the prophets or from the righteous. Every reasonable man ought to distinguish in his mind and thought all the things that he accepts as trustworthy and say, this I accept as trustworthy because of tradition, and this because of sense perception, and this on grounds of reason. Anyone who accepts as trustworthy anything that is not one of these three species, of him it is said, the simple believes everything. That is the English to the first paragraph of the Rambam. I want to read you the first sentence in authentic Hebrew. I'm using the word authentic today a lot. Why? For in the English, where we use the word trustworthy, the Rambam states as such, know, gentlemen, that there is nothing fitting for us to authenticate except through three principles. And the word for what we use for trustworthy is leha'amin, which can mean to make authentic, to believe, to trust, or to give credit to. So I'll ask you in these parting words, and next week we'll go into the letter of the Rambam, which will be an introduction to the Academy of Aver. What makes you feel comfortable? Know, my masters, that it is not proper for a man to accept as trustworthy anything other than one of these three things. Know, gentlemen. I'm translating again, you're listening to my translation, so I'll read it in Hebrew. Da'u rabosai, she'en ra'ui lanu lahamin ela bechar mishleisha dvarim. Da'u, you should know. Rabosai, gentlemen. She'en, that there isn't. Ra'ui, fit. Lanu, for us. Leha'amin, to authenticate. Except Ella, be'echad, with one. Mishleisha, from three dvarim things. That is a straight literal translation. From that translation, there's a learning involved. How comfortable do we want to be? So when somebody refers you to text in English and there's a Hebrew equivalent, the first question is, do I wish to believe what I'm being told in the English based on the context or connotation of my whim to give over to you? Or do I seek the original, the Hebrew, the authentic, to gauge the frequency of which the speaker is speaking? That's where we're going to leave off for today. Next week we'll go into the letter of the Rambam, and we're going to address all the issues that are applicable to bringing Shem's Torah to focus in the Academy of Aver. Thank you very much. That's all for this week. Questions, comments, or feedback, you can reach me, Rabbi Katz, at noahinations.com. Please don't hesitate to review past classes, and always looking forward to questions, comments, or feedback throughout the week. Have a great week.